Real YouTubist drafted Dracovish. I feel so. Wait, what? How did I do that? Where did my Y go? Hello? I feel so sorry for everyone else. Hello. It has been a while since our last draft league on the channel, and this time we're doing something very exciting. So I am pleased to announce something that many of you who follow Draft League already know, which is that I am participating in the 6th season of the WBE. This is the World Battle Entertainment Draft League. The way that Draft League works, for those of you who don't know, is that a pool of coaches of varying size, this league has 16, come together, and everyone drafts a team of, in this case, 11 Pokemon. When I say drafted, what I mean here is that, first of all, it follows a snake draft, so the first, second, third, all the way down to 16th person pick a Pokemon, and then it goes the reverse order back up, so 16, 15, 14, etc. in order. Once one Pokemon has been drafted, nobody else can take that Pokemon. So you can see here that my first pick was Gigantamax Rillaboom, which means that nobody else is able to use Gigantamax Rillaboom for the whole season, aka with a couple exceptions, like both Gigantamax and Max forms are allowed. So with those exceptions, only one Pokemon, like any Pokemon that I have, nobody else is gonna be able to have, with the exception of, maybe Rillaboom. So, it's a really fun format, it's one of my favorites, but the thing is that this league has always been singles. I did win seasons 1, 2, and 3, and then lost in top 4 during the 4th season. However, now in the 5th season, here's the deal. It's doubles. We're playing doubles draft league, and although, I'm sure there have been doubles draft leagues before, and this is a VGC specific draft league, so it's you only bring 4 Pokemon each match, which is very different. And on top of that, it's 2 out of 3, so it's going to play very different than any draft league that I've ever been a part of, at least. I've never played in a 2 out of 3 draft league, and I've never played, with only 4 Pokemon in a draft league, so it should be very interesting. I'm kind of here to go through my team, give you all a little breakdown of what I'm using, and what I drafted, and why, so, yeah, I think that's all the backstory you need, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, okay, let's get started. So my first pick, the way, in each draft, right, in each draft league, I try to think about the specific things about the draft that make it unique, and I try to, kind of build my draft strategy around those things. Now, in this league, one of the things that I thought was the most crucial... I'm actually going to move the chair over a little bit, because I'm a little off-center, naturally. Okay, one of the things that makes this draft league unique is the way that we're treating Gigantamax. So, in the past, in some draft leagues, there were Megas, and normally a better Mega would give you points towards these free slots that you see down here. These free slots that you see down here are... basically, we had 250 points. A tier 1 was 100, a tier 2 was 75, a tier 3 was 50, and a tier 4 was 25 points. So, in leagues in the past, for example, sometimes taking a lower tier Mega Evolution would give you extra points. However, in this league, all Gigantamax Pokemon are treated the same. So, what that meant is that, if I drafted G-Max Rillaboom, it was the same, it didn't do anything extra, or it didn't punish me at all, as if I took G-Max, Eevee, for example, something really bad. So, I thought, alright, Wolf, if you take a good Gigantamax Pokemon, you're basically getting a free tier 1. And so I was looking at the Pokemon that were available, and the only Gigantamax, I was the 3rd pick, so I had an early pick, and the first pick was Togekiss, and the second one was Cinderace. So I probably would have considered taking Cinderace if it had been available, but I figured, okay, if I take G-Max Rillaboom, I don't think it's a phenomenal G-Max Pokemon. I think it's good, for sure. I don't think it's, as good necessarily as Cinderace, but I get Rillaboom kind of for free. So that's why I took G-Max Rillaboom. I mean, this thing is phenomenal. It's the most popular Pokemon in VGC right now for a reason. Grassy Glide is broken. Knockoff is an amazing move. Fake Out is an amazing move. High Horsepower is really good. U-Turn. It's got a couple of different viable sets. I would say Assault Vest, the Life Orb, Choice Band, maybe Weakness Policy. Excuse me, maybe something like Leftovers. I'm not sure if it gets Leech Seed. I'll have to look that up. But, yeah, overall, it's a versatile Pokemon. It also gives me terrain. So, for example, when I play against the players with Indeedee, I have at least something already that's kind of a built-in counter to it. So, yeah, terrain control is really valuable, and it opens a lot of avenues for me going forward. And it's a very flexible Pokemon. So, for example, let's say your first pick was something like, something like Kingdra, for example, right? You're almost always going to want Politoed or Pelipper there to round it out. That's not a great example, but... some Pokemon, for example, if you took Indeedee, then there's certain, that leads you in certain directions. You don't necessarily have to follow those, but you're definitely going to want some Expanding Force Pokemon, etc. You might want, Hatterene, you might want Alakazam, right? With Rillaboom, it's such a flexible Pokemon that works on, every team, so I didn't feel like this was locking me into anything in particular. Then, you know, we had, so the disadvantage of being an early pick is that you have to wait a while for your second pick. So by the time the draft came around to me again, a lot of Pokemon had gone. And it was my turn to pick, so what I ended up doing, of course, was was Dracovish. Now, at this point in the draft, there were many Tier 1 Pokemon that had gone. And so I knew that I probably wanted to grab a Tier 1 Pokemon, because in the end, I figured I would probably end up taking Dracovish and then using one of my... I, like, thought about the points, and I thought it made the most sense to go, like... You can do Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 in your free slots. So basically 2 Tier 1s, 3 Tier 2s, 3 Tier 2s, and 3 Tier 3s, and 2 Tier 4s. And I thought that made a lot of sense based on the tiering. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to probably end up taking 2 Tier 1s. Let me see what's left. And a lot of the kind of the more traditionally like things that you would expect to be gone were gone. And then I saw that Dracovish was still around. Now, Dracovish is a little difficult to use. And when your opponent knows it's coming, they can definitely prepare for it. But I have faith in Dracovish. I think it's really strong. I think one of the reasons that it's not necessarily like as common in the current metagame is because of Dragapult. I think if Dragapult didn't exist, Dracovish would be an incredibly potent Pokemon. And this is a format where only one team has Dragapult. So, of course, my opponents will know that I have Dracovish, and, you know, they can prepare for it. But even still, there's only so much preparation you can do for this thing. It's a terrifying Pokemon. This does 2 things for me. It gives me a Water type, and it gives me a Dragon type, and it gives me Dracovish. I guess 3 things. But I was like, okay, if I get Grass and Water, then... I've got 2/3 of a Fire, Water, Grass core. I've started my Fairy, Dragon, Steel core. Those are both cores that are typically considered good to have. And I like the typing. I want you all to keep in mind my speed stats as I go through this, because I think my draft does 2 things extremely well, and I don't think it's things that are super obvious to most people, so I don't think people are like hyping up my draft too much or anything. But in my opinion, I think that my typing and my speeds are really good. So Dracovish is like a mid-speed Pokemon. I believe it's base 75. No, that can't be right. Yeah, that's right. Base 75 stat. Rillaboom is base 85 stat. So keep that in mind. Water Dragon plus Grass so far. But yeah, in terms of Dracovish, like, you're pretty much only running Fish's Rend relatively. But I think also, like, so I drafted Dracovish last season in the singles. Thing, and like I pretty much just ran Scarper Band every week depending on what I wanted to go for. But I think in doubles I actually have a lot more room to be creative with it. I think I could definitely run Life Orb Substitute. I think I could run like Iron Ball with Trick Room. I think there's a lot of different things that I could do with this thing, and yeah, I don't necessarily intend... I think that I will try to use this thing in a more multi-dimensional way, because I think that there's a lot more room for that in doubles when you have 2 Pokemon on the field at the same time than in singles. Yeah, so that's my instinct. Going on to the 3rd pick that I took. Now, this is one that I thought was really important, and I wanted to grab it early. I grabbed Drifblim as my Tier 2, or as one of my Tier 2 Pokemon. It might seem a little weird to grab Drifblim early, but I think it was really important. Whimsicott was gone. I didn't want Whimsicott anyway. I didn't want Talonflame because it's an awful Pokemon. What am I saying? Yeah, I didn't want Talonflame. I didn't want Whimsicott. But I did think that Talon would be really good. And one of the reasons why I wanted to pick Rillaboom is... So I guess I misspoke a little bit. I said that Rillaboom didn't necessarily lead you in any specific direction, but it does do one thing. It does give you access to grassy terrain, and so Pokemon that benefit from that, there's certain Pokemon that benefit from having grassy terrain on your team, right? And one of those Pokemon is Drifblim. So Drifblim has the ability Unburden. Unburden means that when you use your item, your speed stat doubles until you switch out. So basically, Drifblim can hold the item Grassy Seed, which gives it +1 in defense and doubles its speed stat, meaning I can have a Tailwind that's faster than anything that I want it to be, except for certain things like Prankster and like Sand Rush or Swift Swim. Additionally, I think Drifblim is a phenomenal Pokemon. It gets access to Will-O-Wisp. They give it access to Strength Sap, Tailwind, Shadow Ball, Baton Pass, Stockpile, Calm Mind, Minimize, like all this stuff, Hypnosis. I think I guess Clear Smog or maybe Haze, so I think most of the time Clear Smog is going to be better. But yeah, since I had Dracovish as my 2nd pick, I figured for my 3rd pick, getting something with Tailwind could be really good. Because I can do, like, if you get Choice Band, Dracovish, and Tailwind, that sounds really scary to me. And it's very difficult to stop Drifblim from setting Tailwind up. So I also like Drifblim Rillaboom in theory as a combination, because if my opponent lacks Intimidate, something that I can do is like have offensive G-Max Rillaboom and just use Tailwind right away. And just like Tailwind, Life Orb, Max Drum Solo, and just start smacking things. So I think that these 3 have really nice synergy. I do have 2 strong physical attackers, and Drifblim is especially strong. So I'm weaker on the special side, which I think is one of the weaknesses of my draft. Like, my team is primarily physical, which is not amazing for sure, but only primarily, not entirely. So yeah, but yeah, Drifblim I think will be very good this season. That's my That's my prediction for it. We add Ghost and Flying typing to our roster. I had to wait a while for my next pick, so by the time it came back to me, I did say, like I said earlier, I did want more tier 1s. I wanted one more tier 1 Pokemon. However, a lot of the tier 1s were gone at this point, so I was looking at what was left, and I saw Arcanine. So I figured, okay, Arcanine is not a very exciting Pokemon, but it does a couple things for me. Number 1, it gives me Intimidati. Number 2, it completes my Fire, Water, Grass core. So in my first 4 picks, I can complete my Fire, Water, Grass core. I can get a second Will-O-Wisp user. I can have good speed support. It also opens up some other options for me, right? It gives me a fast Safeguard user. It can run Choice Band. It can run Justified if you can get a beat-up user. So there's a couple different things you can do with this thing, and yeah, it can be special. It can be physical. It has like a ton of good moves. It can be like it has good offensive moves as well, like Player Off, Wild Charge, Close Combat, Extreme Speed, or just be purely supportive. You can run Burn Up. There's a lot of things going for it. Oops, what on? Wait, how did I do that? I don't know how I did that. But yeah, so overall, I thought this thing could like provide a lot of like kind of glue to the team. Intimidati just benefits. It's such a good, like, I knew I wanted Intimidati at some point, and of course, like, I could have drafted a low tier Intimidati Pokemon, but I figured maybe grab it early, like maybe have it on an actually good Pokemon, because that way I can feel more comfortable bringing it. So I complete my Fire, Water, Grass core with effectively 3 tier 1 Pokemon, which I thought was really good. And in my tier 2, I've gotten a phenomenal Tailwind user. So although Arcanine isn't the most exciting Pokemon, I do think that I'll be able to use this thing in a creative way, and I think it should be a, like it feels like glue to me, you know. I just really like the synergy between Rillaboom, Dracovish, and Arcanine. So yeah, my next pick was supposed to be Bronzong. That was the plan. However, the plan went awry right before I picked. So basically, I was gonna have 2 quick picks back to back, and I wasn't really thinking. I was like, oh, I'll grab Arcanine and then Bronzong, because I didn't think that either of the other people would take Bronzong. But I didn't look too closely, and I thought there was a chance that A-Drive was gonna take Arcanine. So instead, I went Arcanine first with the intention of taking Bronzong next, and it backfired. A-Drive drafted Bronzong and Rhyperior as his like tier 1, tier 2 combo, and that kind of left me in a sticky spot, because all of a sudden I didn't have something that I was, you know, kind of hoping to get. So I did some thinking, and I thought, okay, I do want a Steel type. I've got a Dragon already. I definitely want a Steel type. Steel is going to be pretty important here, I think. Although I haven't really been building VGC 2020 teams with Steel type Pokemon. I figured that I was going to want one in this draft for sure. So I was looking at what was left, and by far the best one, in my opinion, that wasn't tier 1, was Escavalier. So Escavalier, very strong Pokemon. Very, very strong Pokemon, in my opinion. It's got phenomenal bulk. It's not the most common Pokemon because, you know, it's really slow. It's actually, like, it's one of the slowest Pokemon in the format. It has base 20 speed compared to a lot of slower Pokemon, which, you know, even Trick Room Pokemon like Amoonguss and Hatterene are around the 30, 31 base speed area, so it underspeeds everything. It also has a couple good abilities with Overcoat, blocking Spore, and hail damage, and it lets you ignore Rage Powder. Shell Armor, which means it can't be crit, and Swarm to power up Bug-type moves when its health gets low. Additionally, it has a phenomenal moveset. So, Knock Off, Razor Shell, Close Combat, Drill Run, Mega Horn, Fell Stinger, Iron Head, probably some other things as well. It gets Encore, gets Acid Spray, a couple weird things like that. So I ended up taking Escavalier. I figured this is a great Pokemon. It's a good Dynamax Pokemon, but it doesn't have to Dynamax. It's very customizable, and it only has 1 weakness as well. So, although it adds a Fire weakness, I've got 2 Fire weaknesses right now, and I have 2 Fire resists, one of which being, like, both my Fire resists are really good at the moment. So, I think the only shared weaknesses I have right now are, like, Rock and Ice with Drifblim and Arcanine, and then Rillaboom and Drifblim. Is that true? Flying, Electric. Yeah, might only be it. Huh, cool. Yeah, so once again, I added Bug and Steel type to my team. Let's take a second to pause here, and I'll show you what I was doing this whole time, which I don't think anyone realized, but was definitely intentional. Look at my speed stats, right? I've got Arcanine base 95, I've got Rillaboom base 85, I've got Dracovish base 75, I've got Escavalier base 20, extremely slow. I've got Drifblim faster than everything, right? So I have this Tailwind option, which I can power up my mid-speed mons, and I'm starting to build out a Trick Room mode as well. Escavalier is an amazing Trick Room sweeper, and I knew when I drafted Escavalier, I had one specific Trick Room setter in mind to pair it with, and I was really hoping I got it, which I did. But yeah, I was building out this Trick Room mode as well. So I was feeling a bit inspired by Gen 5, which is one of my favorite generations. So I figured, you know, let's keep this party rolling. Let's grab one of my favorite Pokemon ever, Crafty. Crafty and I have a lot of history. I've used Crafty for a long time. I basically at this point was looking. I knew I wanted Crafty and then my Trick Room Setter, and I was looking at the other people's teams, the 2 people who were going to pick after me, and they both already had like the typing and the like Adrian already had Bronzong, and I forget what Sierra had, but I figured I think she already had a Psychic type, and I was like, she's not taking this Pokemon. So so I chose to take Crafty next because I figured it was more in danger. And so I really like Crafty. They gave Crafty Close Combat this generation. They also gave it Lash Out. So I think Crafty, it gets kind of overshadowed because like the metagame is a lot of Pokemon that are unfavorable to it, such as Togekiss, such as even Incineroar is kind of tough because, you know, it intimidates it. There's a lot of Intimidate going around right now. But in Draft League, I think Crafty can really shine. It has some good coverage moves such as Poison Jab, Ice Punch, I think Rock Head Smash. Yeah, Head Smash. And of course, Close Combat and Lash Out are very strong as well. It has Intimidate as well, so I've grabbed a second Intimidate user, which, you know, normally I don't feel like is, like I don't necessarily love using, you know, tons of Intimidate or anything, but, like if it was a team of 6, but on a team of 11, having 2 different options for Intimidate, I think is actually kind of nice, especially because both Scrafty and Arcane have abilities that you can use, that aren't Intimidate, such as Justified and Arcanine, and then Crafty has Moxie and Shedskin, so both those abilities have some use. Like, for example, if you wanted to use like a Life Orb Crafty and have it be a sweeper against a team without Intimidate, you could use Moxie pretty freely, I think, and just try and like have it be a sweeper. So, yeah. So with that in mind, I grabbed Scrafty, right? Again, Scrafty's a pretty slow Pokemon. It's around base 58, 57, I think. So it's not super fast. Maybe it's only base 50 or 55, but it's pretty slow. And because, like, basically I figured, okay, I have my mid-speed Pokemon, I have a very fast Pokemon in Drifblim, I have Tailwind to boost my mid-speed Pokemon, I'm building out my Trick Room mode now. So I wanted Trick Room Setter, Trick Room Support, and Trick Room Sweeper. I started with the Sweeper, that was Escavalier. Now I've got my Trick Room Support, that's Crafty, and then I'm going to get my Trick Room Setter. So this is all very intentional and very planned. After grabbing Crafty, I got the Pokemon that I was the most nervous about, but I did end up getting it, and I'm really excited for Masharna. Now, Masharna, I feel like it was a tier 3 Pokemon, unlike Crafty, who was tier 2. I think a lot of people kind of underestimate Masharna and don't realize that it's a phenomenal Pokemon. So Masharna is very slow, base 30 speed, I think. Has a couple good abilities. Well, has one good ability, Telepathy, meaning you can use, you know, you can use these spread moves that would hit your partner, and Masharna will be immune to it. The reason Masharna doesn't get more usage is because that it's overshadowed by some other Pokemon, and always has been. For example, if you wanted a super bulky Trick Room Setter that was mostly support, you could run Dusclops in the current format. If you wanted, you know, something like Masharna in the past, you would run Cresselia. However, Masharna has phenomenal bulk, like really, really, really good bulk, and an amazing move pool as well. Thinking about pretty much any Psychic type move that you could want in terms of support, or like almost like it gets like so many good support moves, Masharna has like incredible access in its move pool. So I was really excited for Masharna. It's going to be, like, it has good special bulk, so the combination of Masharna plus Crafty should be almost impossible to stop Trick Room going up without, like, very hard tech, in my opinion. Especially when you consider that the item is customizable, so you can run Mental Herb if you're afraid of Taunt, you can run Ghost or Dark Berry if you're afraid of those powerful moves. So overall, I'm really excited to use Masharna. I think it should be just, like, a monster, honestly. I expect it to be, like, one of the hidden gems of this team. And it flushes out my Trick Room mode. So if we kind of we still have 4 Pokemon left, but of the 7 Pokemon I've drafted, first of all, let's pay attention to typing. I have no repeat typing on this team so far. Grass, Dragon, Water, Ghost, Flying, Bug, Steel, Psychic, Fire, Fighting, and Dark. So in 7 picks, I have 11 different typings out of the 17 or 18 that there are total. So that's really good. And then if you look at my speed tiers, Masharna, Crafty, Escavalier, very strong, slow mode, and then Rillaboom, Drifblim, Dracovish, Arcane, very strong fast mode, in my opinion. Now, those Dracovish, Drifblim, Arcane are all mid to upper speed, but when you consider Dracovish runs Choice Scarf, Rillaboom has Grassy Glide, which is a priority move, and then Arcane is actually pretty fast, and you have, like, a pretty good Tailwind Setter, like, one of the best Tailwind Setters, in my opinion, in Draft League, or at least it should be. I think that this is, like, a really strong, like, kind of, like, it's going to be very difficult to prepare for my team, I think, because I have so many different modes I can go to ensure that I'm moving first, which in Pokemon is huge. So, yeah. This was kind of what I was like, okay, I built the foundation of my team. How do I flesh this out a little bit, right? And so I started thinking, and I was like, okay, my next pick is going to be an electric type. I don't think I have my notes anymore. But I was like, okay, my next pick is going to be an electric type. And so I narrowed it down to 3 Pokemon. The first was Jolteon. The second was Boltund. I figured it has competitive now, I think, which is a pretty good ability, and it has strong jaw, and it's pretty fast. And then the third, I forget what the third was, but it was between these 3 electric types. And so I gave it some thought, and those of you familiar with my Twitch channel know that I've been using Jolteon on Twitch a fair bit recently. However, this is before, this draft happened way before I even tried Jolteon, so I didn't realize how strong it was. Wait, what the heck? Oh, never mind. I had no idea how strong Jolteon was, so I gave it some thought. I was thinking about it, and in the end, I decided to take Jolteon, and I'm really glad I did, because although I haven't used this in the draft yet, it's been so strong on stream. Like, I actually think Jolteon is a huge sleeper pick, and is actually incredibly powerful, and a really good Pokemon. Now, unlike my stream team, which I had Wigglytuff to set the rain so I could use Weather Ball, I don't have access to that, so I won't have access to that nice coverage move, but honestly, I'm not even sure if it's needed. So Jolteon I picked initially because it is a base 130 speed stat. So when we're talking about typing, and we're talking about speeds, which are the 2 things that I was the most focused on in this draft, Jolteon does 2 things for me. It adds this 130 base speed stat, meaning it's going to be faster than almost anything that my opponents will have. Pokemon like Cinderace, Pokemon that basically are not Dragapult, which only one person has, Jolteon's going to be outspeeding the majority of them. There's very, very, very few Pokemon that can unboosted outspeed Jolteon. So having a Pokemon that can move first, I thought was really good. It actually gets some good support moves in Light Screen and Yawn and Helping Hand and Baton Pass, so it has some things that it could do. But also, it's just like a nice offensive Pokemon. Life Orb Volt Switch, Life Orb Thunderbolt, Life Orb Thunder. Gets access to... The coverage moves are actually pretty bad. You probably could run like Shadow Ball or Hyper Beam if you want to max it, but other than that, it's pretty... the coverage moves are not good, but thankfully, I don't even know how much it needs the coverage moves because Electric is such a strong type. So, yeah, I really, really like Jolteon. I have some plans. Like, I don't want to reveal all my secrets here in my kind of breakdown video, so I'm not going to tell you all the ideas I had for it, but it pairs really nicely with some of the current members of my team. I'm not going to say too much more than that because I do not want to give it away, but yeah, it does pair extraordinarily nicely with a couple of my Pokemon that you see here. So, yeah, I think that's all I want to say about it, but I was really stoked to get this. At the time, I thought it was kind of like a sleeper tier 3 pick, and after using it, I 100% feel like it's super strong. I feel like one of the strengths of my draft are my tier 3s. I feel like the 2 tier 3s that I drafted, and the third one as well, though I'm less convinced that one will be as much of a Juggernaut, an offensive Juggernaut, or as much of a key player as the other 2, but these 2 in particular, I feel like this round, this Masharna Jolteon pairing, was super strong. Next up, I mentioned earlier the Fantasy Core, the Fairy Dragon Steel. I had my Dragon in a high tier, Dracovish. I had my Steel type, Escavalier, relatively high tier. I didn't have a Fairy type, and I also didn't have a normal type, so I grabbed sleeper pick Wigglytuff. You can't spell Wigglytuff without GG. A lot of the tier 3 Pokemon were lackluster, I'll be honest with you. But I really liked what Wigglytuff provided for my team, which is a normal type and a fairy type, both of which are very good. A ghost immunity and a dragon immunity. Like, having 2 immunities in your, kind of a lower tier pick is really good. Wigglytuff won a regional in VGC 2014. The reason is that it has the ability competitive, which, for those of you who don't know, if any stat is lowered, raises your special attack by 2 stages. So things like max ghost, max dragon, max normal, max bug, and max dragon, ghost, bug, normal, dark. Thank you. All those max moves can double Wigglytuff's special attack. Additionally, it has a phenomenal move pool, as most normal types do, and the stats aren't terrible. Most of the time, it'll run an Assault Vest set, though in Draft League that can be different for sure. But pretty good special bulk. It is a Dynamax target, actually. Normal lowers the opponent's speed stats, which could be good with Pokemon like Dracovish. And again, because my Pokemon are so spread out in their speed tiers, like, there's going to be situations where something's going to be like, I'm going to be faster than some things, but there's also going to be situations where, like, I'm on the cusp. And so having these Pokemon that can use max normal, I think, or max flying, though I don't really have good max flying users, but yeah, being able to use max normal, I think is pretty valuable. Wigglytuff has phenomenal coverage moves, Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, all that stuff, Hyper Beam, Hyper Voice, Dazzling Gleam. I haven't even honestly looked at the move pool too much, but I think it's a very strong Pokemon, and I expect it to put in some work, and it's also just a deterrent, right? Like, my team is physical, right? My main sweepers are Rillaboom and Dracovish, Escavalier, right? Pokemon like Crafty, even Arcane sometimes is physical, so I have a lot of physical Pokemon in this team. I think it is one of the weaknesses of the draft, So having a Pokemon with competitive, especially a Pokemon that I actually see myself bringing depending on the matchup, I think that's really valuable. Wigglytuff, as I mentioned, also has good special defense and pretty poor physical defense. So having double Intimidate and double good Will-O-Wisp users with Driftwood and Arcane, and then Arcane and Crafty, the opposite respectively, like reverse respectively, you know what I'm saying? I think that's really valuable, and I anticipate that doing pretty well for me. So I thought Wigglytuff was a great fit for my team. Could function in or out of Trick Room, could function in or out of Tailwind, though it's relatively slow. So if you're using a Tailwind, you're going to have to be careful. But yeah, I thought Wigglytuff was a super strong Pokemon, and I was really glad I was able to get it. And then we were into Tier 4. So at this point, like, a lot of the Pokemon were taken already. Tier 4 is like a tier with it was a lot of bad Pokemon in that tier, so I was kind of working with what I had. However, my first Tier 4 I feel really strongly about. I feel like I did a really good job in grabbing it, which is Piloswine. So Piloswine adds a ground type and an ice type. Again, if you look at my first 10 picks, Grass, Dragon Water, Ghost Flying, Steel Bug, Psychic, Electric, Ground Ice, Fire, Dark Fighting, Normal, and Fairy. I have 16, if I counted correctly, 16 typing, and no repeats here. Piloswine is another slower Pokemon, so now my team is starting to trend a little towards the slow side. However, it's actually kind of dichotomous. Well, actually no, it's not even dichotomous. I spaced these Pokemon out really well. Like, if you look at the whole... I wonder if I have it... Hang on, let me see if I can... I'm going to switch to full screen just to see if I can pull it up really quickly. I can pull it up, 1 second. It's probably easier to show you here. Sorry, what my team name was. Looking for... Okay, cool. Okay, after this then I will do it. Okay. Piloswine. Okay, I'll show you the full team in a second. But yeah, Piloswine, really good stats, really good Diglett user. It actually can Dynamax, and it has good abilities. So it has 3 good abilities. Oblivious makes you immune to Intimidate. Snow Cloak means that your accuracy goes, or your evasion goes up in the hail, which is useful in certain situations, especially if you Dynamax your Piloswine. And then Thick Fat reduces the power of fire and ice type moves. So this thing can be really tanky. It also has the priority move Ice Shard, which is extremely valuable. It's basically just Mamoswine Light, right? Like more bulk, less power, and no item. So I think it was a really, really good steal in Tier 4. I definitely see myself bringing it, because the thing about this is, like, a lot of the Pokemon in Tier 4 just, like, they really struggled with their stats, right? And Piloswine doesn't really struggle with its stats. Like, it, I don't know, like, it has really good stats. Like, it's slow, sure, but, like, the bulk and offense aren't bad at all. Like, it's base 100 attack, which isn't phenomenal. But it's also not awful, especially for a Tier 4 Pokemon. So I think in certain situations, this thing's going to be really valuable. And having 2 electric immunities between Jolteon and Piloswine, I think is actually pretty valuable. And last but not least, the last pick that I had, I wanted Pokemon like Noctowl and Delibird, kind of just for, well, Noctowl because it's broken and Delibird because it's broken. But yeah, I wanted them, but they were taken. So I was thinking about what to get last, and I saw Diglett. So yeah, this is the first time I repeat typing on my team, but Diglett doesn't really have a typing, is the truth, because it's so frail, it'll get KO'd by anything. I wanted a beat-up user that was faster than Arcanine, and the only one left that I could take was Diglett. So, this is pretty much here just so I have the threat of beat-up plus Justified. However, there's a couple other things that I realized after drafting it that I could do with it. But I don't want to give them away, so I'm not going to spoil them for you yet, but I have some ideas with this thing that I think could be very interesting. It actually has Arena Trap, which is a phenomenal ability, and a couple of decent support moves like Memento. That way you can, you know, at least do something with your Diglett, but, yeah. So I have plans for, I think Diglett could actually be okay. It's, like, definitely the weakest member of my draft, but I think it, like, provides me the ability to use fast beat up Justified, which versus certain teams might just win me the game, or a game in the 2 out of 3, so I do think, therefore, it's pretty good to keep around, and just good to have on the team. We also have free agency, so I feel like if I feel like Diglett isn't pulling its weight, of course I could switch it out, but I honestly have faith in Diglett. I think it can do some good work. So, with that being said, I want to show you all this is the team overall, and I think this kind of breaks it down. Is there a way to sort? No. Okay, so this is my team. Oh, my face cam is blocking it. Hang on, let me move face cam. Okay. Cool, moving over here. Okay, cool. So, if we look over here. It's not going to work, is it? Maybe zooming out is better. Yeah, okay. So, you can see here my speed stats, right? I just want you to take a look at how I've spread the speed stats out across the board, because I think it's really important. It's something that people weren't really paying that much attention to, but I think it's extremely impactful. So 85, 95, 75, 80, right? These are all spread out somewhat, right? If you want to outspeed like Dracovish, you might have to consider also Rillaboom, right? And that makes it awkward. Where like so basically in Draft League, when Pokemon are clumped together in their speed stats, it's like a kind of a drag to figure out, like, or it's a weakness in prep, because if your Pokemon are all like, let's say 80, 81, 82, 83, if they outspeed the Pokemon that's 83, your opponents, then they outspeed everything. But when your Pokemon have like 10 to 20 to 30 points in between them, they can't just like easily go above the fastest one for a lot of these Pokemon without giving up other things like bulk or power. So it makes the decision-making process for your opponents when deciding how fast to go a lot different. So 85, 95, 75, 80. We have between 75 and 95 here with these first 4 picks. So Driftwood doesn't really count because it's almost always going to be double speed. So yeah, ignore that. But then we have some slower Pokemon. 20, 58, 29. Masharna actually underspeeds a lot of other Pokemon. 45 and 50. So these are slow Pokemon, but they're also like, especially Wigglytuff and Swine and Crafty, 58. These are more middling speed Pokemon. So this is kind of the reverse, where it's like, okay, I want to underspeed, like I want to underspeed Wigglytuff, but outspeed, or underspeed Swine, but outspeed Wigglytuff. Stuff like that, or like I want to underspeed Crafty, but then like how slow can I go, or I want to outspeed Crafty, but then like then I'll lose in Trick Room. So my slower Pokemon are also pretty spread out as well. Though what's also nice is I have 2 Pokemon under 30. 30 is kind of a big number to hit when it comes to Trick Room, because so many Pokemon are clustered around 30 and just above 30 and 31 and all those stats. So having 2 Pokemon right under that, I think is really good. Masharna, Escavalier, and then Wigglytuff and Swine are Pokemon that can function in and out of Trick Room because they're middle, like they're lower middle. They're slow, but they're not like, they don't need to be in Trick Room. They can be in or out of Trick Room, which makes, predicting how they're going to be used difficult. And then Crafty is a Pokemon that really, really can function in and out of Trick Room as well. And then of course Diglett doesn't really count, so you don't really pay attention to that. But as you can see, like if we go through from like lowest to the highest, we have 20, 29, 45, 50, 58, 75, 85, or 75, 80, 85, 95, 130. We didn't even talk about Jolteon, who creates a nice upper bound for the team, giving me instant speed for a lot of this. So between speed and typing, which again were the things that I was focusing on, I'm really happy with how this turned out. So yeah, that's the draft. Let me know what you think down below. I know it's like, I feel like my team doesn't look as scary on paper, but I have a lot of faith in it, and I feel like, yeah, like there are certain things about this that I think could really, really be problematic for my opponents. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Let me know what you think down below in the comments about the draft and about kind of my process here and about the Pokemon I drafted. What do you think is going to be the MVP? What do you think is kind of going to... Are there things that you think are going to perform above expectations, or are there things that you think are going to be kind of weak / maybe I end up dropping in free agency? I'm curious to know what you all think. So, with that being said, thanks for watching. Week 1 goes up next week, so I'm playing actually against A-Drive in the first week, and his team, the matchup isn't super in my favor, so it actually is kind of a rough matchup, so we'll have to see what happens and see kind of how things go. But yeah, we'll have weekly WB battles from here on out. So with all that being said, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.